I already said this, that all of the children of the Prophet ﷺ were through Khadija. We said that there were at least 6 children. The reason why at least 6, the first child of the Prophet ﷺ, you should all know his name, it is Al-Qasim. And Al-Qasim, the Prophet ﷺ's kunya was Abu Al-Qasim. That's his first child. His kunya is Abu Al-Qasim. Al-Qasim, it is said that he was born in the days of Jahiliyyah. He was born before the wahi began. He was born before the wahi began. It is said that Al-Qasim had reached the age where the boys could ride on the camel. 6, 7, 8 years old. And then he passed away. That's all that we have. It's the only thing we know about him. Not one story has been preserved. But 6, 7, 8 years old before he passed away. And then the Prophet ﷺ had Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Fatima, the youngest daughter. 4 daughters. Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Fatima. And then he had his final son with Khadija, and that is Abdullah. Now, some people say he also had At-Tahir and At-Tayyib. And so they add 2 more to make it 8. However, the strongest position is that Abdullah had 2 nicknames, At-Tahir and At-Tayyib. And so At-Tahir and At-Tayyib is Abdullah. And At-Tahir means the pure one, and At-Tayyib also means the pure one. And this is what the nicknames they would have for their child. And Abdullah died in infancy without even in Islam. He was born after the wahi and he died in Islam. Of course, the 4 daughters, all of them lived to maturity. All of them married, and the 3 of them died in his own lifetime. So he ﷺ buried his own daughters with his hands. The 3 daughters he buried with his own hands. Only Fatima outlived him, and even Fatima on his deathbed, he told Fatima something and she cried. And when he saw her crying, this is his daughter and he loves his daughter like only a father can love a daughter. He calls his daughter again and he whispers something and she laughs. Many months later, Aisha asked Fatima, can you tell me that conversation? I want to know. And so Fatima confessed and she said, my father told me that he's about to die and I couldn't bear except to cry. So when he saw me crying, he called me and he said, you will be the first of my family to meet me. Meaning you're going to die soon. So I laughed, subhanAllah. I laughed because I'm going to meet the Prophet ﷺ the first. And Fatima only lived a few months after the Prophet ﷺ before she passed away as well. Now, it is interesting to comment here, and perhaps maybe we'll go back to this later on, but it's interesting to comment here, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, it is as if he is facing the most traumatic problems after problems. Because the most traumatic thing that can happen to a child is to lose parents. And the most traumatic thing that can happen to a parent is to lose the child. Isn't that the case, right? I mean, there is no musibah on earth that is more painful than these 2. There is no musibah. Wallahi, there is no musibah. And we as parents know this, that there is nothing that is more painful to us than to lose a child. And as a child, the most painful and dreadful thing, and this is something we have forgotten that phase of our younger lives, but the fact of the matter is, subhanAllah, look at what happens when a 4 or 5-year-old loses their parents in the supermarket. What happens? They go crazy and wild that they cannot see their parents because they get so worried. Because there's nothing more conceivably, dramatic or disaster for this child than to lose the ones that love and take care of this child, right? Our Prophet ﷺ is multiple times orphaned. Father, then mother, then grandfather, then uncle, one after the other. And he's multiple times losing his own children. First the eldest, Al-Qasim, and then Abdullah, and then of course he has Ibrahim. Now Ibrahim, by the way, was not born of his wife, it was born of his maidservant, his Amma. And so none of his wives gave birth. Amma is different fiqh-wise, and that's maybe we'll talk about it in its time. None of the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ became pregnant other than Khadija.